What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Patrick, aka Addicted to Combat, back for another week of Best Bets and Props, where I go over all of my bets placed for this weekend's UFC card, which is UFC Fight Night Kansas City, Max Holloway versus Arnold Allen. Amazing fight at featherweight for potentially 5 rounds. Former featherweight champion and future Hall of Famer Max Holloway taking on the rising, undefeated in the UFC, Arnold Allen. Awesome fight there. The co-main event is also at featherweight, a potential fight of the night candidate between the always exciting Edson Barbosa and Billy Quarantillo. We've got 14 fights on this card in all, and hopefully most of them stay intact. There's some really fun matchups. Some really low-level fights and just ones that we probably shouldn't be betting on, but I do have a collection of money lines I'm stabbing this week. I've got 3 favorites, 2 underdogs, and then I've got 1/2 of a parlay carried over from last week, along with a few props as well and 1 parlay. So a lot to go through. I'll go through the money lines briefly, give some of my favorite props, and as usual, check out my full card breakdown for the fine details of how I see these things playing out. And check out my live stream I did yesterday with Cody from Blood Money MMA Bets. We went in great detail and analyzed these from, our prediction perspective, but also from a prop betting perspective as well. So hit the like, hit the subscribe. You guys have been killing it with the subscribers, getting close to that 1,000 subscriber club. And let's break into the first money line of the night. My first money line of the card is in the prelims. Second fight of the night at bantamweight. I've got Gaston Bolaños. I put 1 unit on him at -190. A very sketchy fight to bet on. I would not invest too heavily on this, but I do think Bolaños will be the better striker in what I think is going to be a striker versus striker matchup they're trying to set up here. Aaron Phillips, a Taekwondo fighter. Gaston Bolaños making his debut, having 9 fights under Bellator's banner, 6-3 in those. A kickboxing and Muay Thai fighter, and he's performed in both of those sports outside of his mixed martial arts career. 6 wins for Bolaños, all 6 of them by way of knockout. This guy's got amazing accuracy with really flashy spinning techniques that are not just flashy, but also brutalizing as well. And he's got very good traditional Muay Thai techniques as well. A good clinch, good close range and long range weapons. The grappling is where he's struggled in the past, but he's facing a Taekwondo fighter in Aaron Phillips who does have some good scramble ability when Phillips is being taken down, but not much success. He's gone 0-3 in the UFC, getting out-grappled in all of those. 2 of those fights were many, many years ago. One of those fights was 3 years ago. That was the last time we saw him fight. He had to take on Jack Shore on short notice. Did not work out for him. So Phillips been gone for almost 3 years. Bolaños only been away from the cage for about, 10 or 11 months now. But Phillips, his only good moments have been against pretty low-level competition. I don't think his defense is that good, and I think Bolaños will get the knockout, but 1 unit on Bolaños at -190. I wanted to add more on his knockout prop, but it's very low. It's like +115, and Phillips, as much as I'm kind of not giving him so much respect here, he has never been knocked out. He's been TKO'd 1 time, and that was 2 leg kicks from Chris Gutierrez, who we'll talk about later in this video. So give me Bolaños to pull it off in his debut. Up next, I'm taking a shot on an underdog. Still on the prelims, I'm taking Denise Gomez to defeat Bruna Brazil. Brazil making her debut, Gomez making her second walk to the cage. This is at women's strawweight, 115-pound bout here. Taking Gomez, 1 unit on this underdog at +170, and the line has since tightened up a little bit now. Bruna Brazil was around like -200. She's, I think, -170 at this point, maybe getting even tighter. But Brazil, she's got a lot of finishes. 5 finishes out of her 8 wins so far. She did have a nice head kick highlight reel knockout over a very short, stocky opponent who I think was undefeated at the time, Marnik Mann, last year on the Contender Series. And likewise, Gomez also had a very dominant decision on the Contender Series last year, and then made her debut on 4 weeks short notice against Loma Lookboonmee, gave a very good account of herself, and although she was beat pretty decisively, she did show some very good grappling, and I wouldn't be surprised if she tries to attempt more takedowns. I'm not even takedowns, but just the submission attempts in this fight. She was diving on necks, almost got an arm triangle on Loma Lookboonmee, almost got a rear naked choke in round 3. She's got 0 subs, but that submission prop at like +1,600 might be a sneaky look for the underdog here if you're feeling lucky. But I'm just going to take her money line. I think that she's really got the best quality in that she's been through very tough fights before and come through as the victor. She's been dominated on the regional scene in like rounds 1 and 2. Come back and overwhelmed her opponent using her durability and her stamina. So the cardio, the durability, the tenacity to pull through a bad spot, something I always look for, especially when we're looking at fighters at this level. So give me Gomez to win. Taking another underdog up next, I've got Lando Venata to defeat Daniel Zellhuber, and I might have been getting a little bit underdog happy on this one, if I'm being honest. I do have 1 unit on Venata at plus 110. I think that number is still out there, probably about plus 100 on most books. There's been some people with me taking that underdog shot and fading the newcomer Daniel Zellhuber, who I bet pretty heavily last time he fought against Trey Ogden in his debut in the Apex in September, but he was so gun-shy, maybe octagon jitters, maybe just didn't want to get, risk of getting taken down by the grappler. He just didn't throw very much at all, and Zellhuber looked completely different on his Contender Series bout in 2021 against Lucas Almeida. Absorbed a lot of damage, but dished out triple-digit significant strikes. Good takedown defense for the most part, and his regional scene, he had a lot of finishes, Zellhuber, but it was against pretty low-level competition, so now I'm kind of at odds. Did he just rise to the occasion against Almeida? And then, now we're seeing the true Zellhuber, because Venata is much, much better than Trey Ogden, so he better step up in this spot for the 23-year-old Zellhuber, because Venata's good at striking, he's good with his jiu-jitsu, and he's got pretty good takedown offense as well. But what I like about Venata here is he's got very fast starting ability, he's right in your face right away with big, powerful striking weapons. He can tend to fade as the fight goes on, but hopefully if he starts in the first half of this fight strong, he can make Zellhuber a lot more gun-shy, just like we saw last time. So taking Venata here, if Zellhuber is kind of 50-50 as to where he stands talent-wise here, I think Venata is a very tough opponent with, we're looking at 11 UFC fights already compared to 1 UFC fight for Zellhuber. So give me Venata to mix in some wrestling, mix in some heavy strikes early, and get the decision win. Up next is a money line I'm much more confident in than the last one. I've got Mateusz Nicolau defeating Brandon Royval at flyweight. Mateusz Nicolau, I've invested 2.5 units at minus 190. The money line has moved a little bit to north of minus 200, but I still think that's a decent price for this guy who's got a very technical striking game, a very technical BJJ game, and he's got a lot of minute-winning equity here, going 8-0 in decision results, whereas Brandon Royval is a finisher. He's kill or be killed. He brings that kind of energy and chaos in every fight, finishing 12 of his 14 victories. But in the UFC, he's 4-2, and he's been in trouble in probably his last 4 fights. Even the fights that he's just won, Matt Schnell knocked him down, tried to jump into a submission, and then Royval was able to reverse that. Before that, barely squeaking by a split decision where he got out-grappled by the grappler, Rogerio Bontorin, for the large majority of the fight. And before that, it was losses to high-level guys, Brandon Moreno and Alexander Pantoja. But, Royval's going to bring a chaotic pace. That's why he's exciting. That's why this fight is really a highly anticipated one for most people that are surprised it's on the prelims. But Mateusz Nicolau, man, at flyweight, I got to have the minute-winning ability. I think he's technical enough and accurate enough to really handle the chaos that's going to be brought his way from the very first round. So whether it goes inside the distance or not, I think Nicolau gets his hand raised. But the under 2.5, I do like. I think he's going to have a lot more output than, we've seen in the past, just because Royval is going to open up those opportunities to have him counter-strike effectively. So let's hope that Nicolau does not get overwhelmed here and cash that bet for us. Up next at light heavyweight, I've got a money line I'm very confident in as well. That's Dustin Jacoby to defeat Azamat Murzakanov. I've got minus 171, the price I paid on Dustin Jacoby, 2.5 units invested. So pretty heavy bet. The money line is a lot better now than when I got it. There's been some line movement in the favor of the Russian Azamat Murzakanov, who's more of a power puncher, power striker than he is like a point fighter. So Dustin Jacoby, the much better technical kickboxer here, better at scoring points and probably better at cardio and just higher striking output. But Murzakanov probably the more powerful man here, like one strike for one strike. So he does have a 12-0 record, and he has the knockout on the Contender Series in round 1. He had the debut against Stefan Nchukwi. He was losing up until a round 3 flying knee. And then last time out against Devin Clark, he actually did very well and got his heavy striking game going in round 2. Landed the perfect punches he needed, followed up on those, and then finished the job in round 3 against Devin Clark. So the guy, when he finds his mark, he swarms, and he swarms accurately. He's a southpaw kickboxer. Dustin Jacoby, very good against southpaw opponents. He can switch stances, make things awkward against either stance fighter. He defeated Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, who's a southpaw, and he gave a very good account of himself and arguably could have won against Khalil Roundtree, who's a southpaw. Jacoby does have some power, he's shown us, round one knockouts over Justin Ledet, over Darren Stewart, even over Da Un Jung last summer, probably the most impressive out of those three, but largely I could see him outpointing his way to a decision here, and his durability is very good to handle what's coming back his way. So the only time he's ever been knocked out was by King Mo Lawal back in 2014 in Bellator. So it's been a long time. This guy has accomplished quite a bit without getting his durability cracked. I think he does it again against Mirzakhanov, so Dustin Jacoby, 2.5 units at minus 171 is the bet. And my final money line is actually the second half of a parlay connecting from last week, where I had Gilbert Burns to defeat George Masvidal. Easy work. Connected that to this week's Chris Gutierrez to defeat Pedro Munoz at bantamweight. So I've got minus 123 combined parlay odds. 2 units on that parlay. It rides into this week. So Chris Gutierrez is actually minus 205, 210 against Pedro Munoz, but I still think that's a decent number on him. The problem is you have to consider the fact that Pedro Munoz is probably not going to be finished in this fight. I'd be surprised if his durability finally gets cracked. He's never been knocked out, never been submitted, and he's faced, everybody that ever existed in the bantamweight division. One of the most experienced guys at 36 years old, which, again, is a big problem here. The guy has a lot of fight miles, a lot of wear and tear, and he's pretty old for the weight class, and probably closer to 40 in terms of fight miles in the UFC. Chris Gutierrez, very young at 31. He'll be the bigger man with much better striking weapons. He's able to switch stances, able to, throw spinning attacks, be a lot faster, good boxing, and just long-rangey strikes that can keep Pedro Munoz at bay. Both of these guys have had very good success utilizing leg kicks, so it'll be fun if we see a leg-kicking battle, see who comes out the victor there. But, Gutierrez probably the more powerful man in this spot as well, so I don't expect him to finish Pedro Munoz, but I do expect Gutierrez to have the bigger moments, gain the respect of Pedro Munoz, and sort of dance around him. He cuts angles very well. His lateral movement is great. So, just a newer school version of a bantamweight here. Give me Gutierrez to get the job done by decision. Moving on to some props, I have quite a few scattered props on this card, some fun ones that I like, and even a prop parlay at the end I'll go over. But the very first fight on the prelims, I found a way to play this, surprisingly, between Jocelyn Edwards and Lucia Pudilova at women's 135, and that's the fight goes to decision. So the over 2.5 in this fight is actually very heavily chalked. It's minus 320, minus 300 on some books. But the fight goes to decision on BetOnline, surprisingly only at minus 230. And even on Bovada, it's at minus 240. So just to have to sweat out, and I don't think it's going to be much of a sweat, that extra 2.5 minutes at the end of round 3, where neither woman has ever been defeated before, you get like an extra $1 on that line. So I put 1 unit at minus 230 for this fight to see the scorecards. All of Jocelyn Edwards' UFC fights have seen the scorecards, and the large majority of Pudilova's fights have seen the scorecards as well. The next prop I have is a sprinkle on a kind of a long shot prop, and it's hard for me to even say this, but Ian Kuntalaba to win by decision over Tanner Boser. This is at light heavyweight, and just a quarter unit, 0.25 units at plus 700. That is on DraftKings, that bet. It just makes sense the way I feel like this fight's going to play out. Ian Kuntalaba in desperate need of a win to snap a 3-fight losing streak. He's known for being a wild, known for not making the best decisions. This bet could go up in flames, but if he follows a game plan using his grappling, his Sambo background, judo, and his Greco-Roman base to just control Tanner Boser, where that's his weakest part of his game. Boser was controlled to a decision loss in his last fight. He's been controlled to a decision loss against Alir Latifi not too long ago. Kuntalaba could just easily grind out an easy decision and secure his spot on the roster potentially. Now, Tanner Boser, moving from heavyweight to 205, he's going to still have that kind of built-in durability of just being a bigger guy. He's not been knocked out more than one time, and that was back in 2015 to former UFC fighter Tim Hagg in round 1, like a lucky knockout and a few seconds in. But he's not the biggest power puncher himself. He does have some finishes over some, over-the-hill, washed-up opponents, but mostly a decision winner, a point striker with his karate base. So give me decision for Kuntalaba, just quarter unit at plus 700, hoping that he wrestles and plays a smart, tentative game plan. My next prop is more of a long shot prop. It's just a 0.15 sprinkle on each of these two fighters to finish the other in round 3. This is the co-main event at featherweight between Edson Barbosa and Billy Quarantillo. 0.15 units on Barbosa to finish in round 3 is plus 2,000. That's on Bovada Sportsbook. And 0.15 units for Billy Q to get the finish in round 3 over Barbosa. That's plus 1,000 on DraftKings. The books are wise to Billy Q's tactics because he has finished many opponents in round 3. We're looking at most recently Hernandez at the end of round 2, but Gabriel Benitez, round 3 TKO, Kyle Nelson, round 3 knockout, not Spike Carlisle, but we're looking at Kamwilla Kirk on the Contender Series, round 3 TKO stoppage. He's just looking to play the zombie against the sniper of the kickboxer in Edson Barbosa, who is 37 at this point. So if Billy Q can overwhelm him, barrage him with strikes and forward pressure, maybe even get this fight to the ground when Barbosa is tired, he could potentially beat Barbosa in round 3 and cash as he normally does. So plus 1,000 on that, 0.15 units. But for the opposite, Barbosa to win a war of attrition, finally defeat the pretty durable Quarantillo by round 3 finish. That's plus 2,000 on Bovada Sportsbook. And he's done that quite a few times as well. The Shane Burgos knockout a couple fights ago was a round 3 stoppage. Just finally the strikes built up on Burgos. Dan Hooker a few years ago, same thing. Punishing the body, ripping to the head with strikes, and in round 3 he got the job done. So it's something he's done a few times before as well, and I think it will take some time before either of these guys finishes the other. But the durability of Barbosa has always been kind of up and down. He did get finished in round 3 by Giga Chikadze a couple years ago. Largely ground strikes, but then there's a couple, when he got tired, Giga was able to finish him. Let's see here. Justin Gaethje, that was a one-punch knockout in round 1 a few years back. Kevin Lee, TKO doctor stoppage in round 5 due to a cut, even though Barbosa was getting out-wrestled the entire fight. Bravo choke from Tony Ferguson in round 2 back in 2015. I think it was actually Barbosa that initiated that takedown, then got reversed and his neck snatched up. So that's even a possibility for Billy Q in this fight as well. Like if he gets Barbosa tired enough, he could jump on a submission. But Donald Cerrone, rear naked choke in round 1. That was actually due to a jab. He dropped Barbosa with a jab, if I remember correctly, back in 2014. And the first loss for Edson Barbosa, also a TKO stoppage to Jamie Varner. I was actually at this fight back in 2012. Varner came back to the UFC after, long-time WEC, even the champion in that league, and he came back after a string of losses, came in on short notice to face the undefeated Barbosa that was coming off that Terry Edom spinning wheel kick knockout. I think Barbosa was like a minus 600, minus 700 favorite there, undefeated, and Varner was able to swarm him in round 1, take him down, and just ground and pound him out. So his durability has been up and down all throughout his career, so I could see Billy Q swarming him and finishing this late, but ultimately the pick is Edson Barbosa by finish, or decision, but either of these two guys, I think it'll take a while. So 0.3 units invested, 0.15 on each guy to win in round 3. And last but not least, I do have a prop parlay. It's all-time props here, just 0.75 units invested at plus 144 parlay odds. I like all of these, even if you played them individually, but mostly the Max Holloway, Arnold Allen, banking on the durability of Max Holloway here to make it halfway through this 5-round fight at minus 285. Parlayed with Pedro Munoz, Chris Gutierrez goes over 2.5, banking on the durability of Pedro Munoz, who's never been finished at minus 220. And Bill Algeo versus TJ Brown goes over 1.5 rounds. That's minus 400. That's the chalky anchor to this parlay. And that's going to be plus 144 combined parlay odds at 0.75 units. So just a little homage to my guy Johnny K. Picks, who does three pick parlays like this with time props. I'll play his game a bit. I'll touch the waters with a 0.75 parlay at plus money. So those are the props. Those are the money line bets. The second half of that parlay between Gutierrez and Burns, and those are my bets for this 14-fight card at UFC Kansas City, Max Holloway versus Arnold Allen. Hit up the comments and tell me how you guys plan to make money, what your bets are, if you agree, disagree with me. Either way, hit the like, hit the subscribe. Let's keep the channel growing, and I will talk to you guys very soon. Cheers.